Hello everybody, welcome back. This time we're going to have a look at ANKR, and there's a couple of reasons we're looking at that. First of all, I think it's reaching kind of a relatively low point for its satoshis. I think when we get down to around 43, 44 satoshis, we're likely to make a bit of a pump from there. At the moment though, we're trading sideways, which is one of the reasons I'm enjoying it at the moment, because I've used this on my trading bot with Bitsgap here, and it's ended up being the most profitable by far of all my bots. And the reason for that is because this bot really does enjoy sideways movement, especially with low satoshis. So it's been pretty much a perfect setup, increased by 28% more Bitcoin than I had this time yesterday. This bot's only been going for less than 24 hours, and I've basically increased my Bitcoin amount by 28%. So absolutely unbelievable returns there from this bot using this trading pair. So basically, yeah, it's worked out really well for the bot. But where does this go for the coin? I mean, the bot is definitely taking advantage of this trading range without a doubt. And is it going to continue? I think it probably will. Now, the good thing about what I've spotted with this is that on the daily, it's not looking too rosy. It does look like it wants to come down a little bit more. And if we can only come down to around about 43 sats before the pivot point, it is a big range, because when we're playing with these low sats, I mean, we're talking about a 12% drop basically in the space of, you know, just a handful of sats. But that's fine, because the bot will pick those up and capitalize on each one of those moves. So the bot is going to be working really well within this trading range. But is this something that you want to be buying in spot right now? I don't think as far as a spot purchases, it's going to be a good idea. I think that we could be looking at a further drop with all these altcoins just before we start our alt season, and this is the way that the alt season is going to work. So basically, we're in this. This is the Bitcoin dominance. We're in this descending channel formation. We basically get rejected. You could argue from the top of the channel, or roughly from the 200 exponential on the weekly, which is what we're looking at here. Now, when we get to roughly around, we'll call it the top would be 68%. Reaching 68% would then allow for this to fall back down to the bottom of the range. Now, what would happen in this instance is if Bitcoin, which is relatively likely to be rejected from this top area here, which is around about 17,200, 17,300, that would be likely the top, because that corresponds to these areas where we had significant rejections at the parabolic high, and essentially it's the last area of resistance before we reach our all-time high. So there is a good chance that a lot of people will get front run, and that there will be a pullback around that area. And how significant would it be? I'm not so sure with the amount of buying pressure that it will be extremely significant, but it could be. It could bring us down to a minimum of around about 4%, where the 7 simple is. I'll zoom in a little bit further so you can see that. So the 7 simple moving average around about 4.5%. If it were to be a little bit more, it would go down to the 10 exponential, which is about 5.5, almost 6%. But then, you know, incremental steps down could take us down to the center of the Bollinger Band, or the 21 simple, which is about 12%. Worst case scenario, it brings us all the way down to this trend line, which is 23, 24%. This trend line being a very, very significant one, where we find rejections and supports and rejections and supports and rejections and supports all the way up. Being above it, however, is an extremely bullish sign, but it doesn't mean that we can't come back down to test it. We certainly can do that kind of thing. If we look back in time, we can see when we broke out of it the very first time, when this trend line was first broken out of, we broke above it and came down to test it. This looks like a small move, but I can tell you now that it's not that small at all. From the top to the bottom, that's a 11% move. Again, you know, these wicks can be deceiving with the size of them, but they are still quite relevant when you look at the size of the drops. So we came back up, down to test it, up, back down to test it, and then all the way back up here. And then when we finally came up to the top, we came back down to test it. That was still significant. That was a 29, almost 30% retracement. But we were still quite clearly in a bull market, because shortly after that we rallied about 250%. So, for me to say that we're likely to drop all that way down, you know, it's not out the realms of possibility, because we've done it before, and so long as we're above it, we're in a bull market, everything's good. We could drop all the way down to this trend line, which would be about 24% from the price that we're at right now. We could drop all the way down there, and it would be still perfectly fine for us to maybe even reach an all-time high this year. Maybe we could reach an all-time high, maybe even later on today. Who knows? But basically, that's still perfectly acceptable for Bitcoin to do that kind of thing. Now, what that would likely do to altcoins is it would probably annihilate them in the very short term, and that annihilation would allow for this Bitcoin dominance to reach our area of around about 67.5 to 68% dominant, where we basically will then get rejected, sparking the alt season. So yes, my bot is going to be enjoying this, definitely. It's absolutely going to be loving this trading range, because Satoshis at this level aren't going to be going down an enormous amount. The price of ANKR could go down significantly, but the Satoshis won't, so I'll still be making the most out of the bot trading. But when it comes to buying ANKR at this level, we've got a bit of a bearish looking chart here forming on the Satoshis. There is certainly no real formation to that RSI, and when we look at the tether pairing, it's looking a little bit droopy. We've got basically mixed signals with the Ichimoku cloud. If we were to maintain the current price that we're at right now, then yeah, next week I'd expect a pump. But because we're looking down the barrel of a Bitcoin gun, ready to drop, a possible drop, and a significant one at that, this is likely to come down with it. But then when it reaches that level, we're talking maybe we could come down to around about 0.0067 and find a support, and that would correspond to roughly around these bottom level Satoshis. So anyway, what I'm saying is that ANKR is definitely a token to keep your eye on. In the very short term, we are expecting a drop, but in the wake of that drop, I'm expecting an alt season. The alt season will be kicking in once this level is met, and this means that there will be an opportunity to be buying blood. So the bot will be buying and selling blood constantly, but you know, if you're looking to do this manually and you don't want to do this with your trading bot, then I would certainly say wait for that drop to take place. And ANKR is likely to be one of the ones that is going to be picked up heavier and harder than the others, so that'll be good for us in the spot buyers, it'll be good for us margin traders, it'll also be good for us who are using the bot. Anyway, I'll leave it with you there. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good evening and take it easy.